Well, welcome over here to theCUBE, our social media news desk. And let's not forget, I can tell you, we've been following the story here, right at the heart of Euronews, since it began really with Greta Thunberg outside the Swedish Parliament. Since then, hashtag Fridays for Future, that hashtag going global. You're seeing the action there from New York. But let me show you some of the other places around the world where this movement has really caught on. Let's start off with these pictures from the Afghan capital, Kabul. If we can bring you these. You can see here, alongside heavily armed security forces, demonstrators there marching through the streets of the Afghan capital, demanding action on climate change. Now this, of course, a world away from the lonely scenes outside the Swedish Parliament that so many people in Europe were used to seeing, with Greta Thunberg out there with her posters. Here she's inspired, you can see, the youth of Kabul to join those streets. And over in Pakistan, well, I can say today they too were hosting demonstrations in the capital, Islamabad. In fact, I spoke to the leader of the Fridays for Future movement in Pakistan, and this was his take on the action there today.
You know, the main obstacle we faced was that people had no awareness about what's going on, what's Fridays for Future, and what's climate change. Even 65% of the population don't even know about climate change. So we started with, two students, and we got so much good response after each Friday. So for today's climate strike, a huge crowd came out, and it was about 3,000 to 4,000 people out in the streets of Islamabad. That was really unprecedented. The reporters, the journalists who were present there, they were shocked to see so many people out there because they haven't seen any such a protest before in Islamabad, especially the capital of Pakistan.
And of course, seeing those scenes in New York, you would obviously understand that people there are very engaged. But look at this. This is Tuvalu, a small island part of the British Commonwealth. Here they are demanding action. Hashtag Fridays for Future spreading there. Let's bring you some more pictures. These from Greenpeace in Mumbai, India, where people joined those marches through the streets. Again, you can see a movement really that began in Europe, now well and truly a global phenomenon. Let's bring you a couple of others. And I can say, actually, speaking to so many of these demonstrators through social media, they're all very, very friendly and very keen to reach the media and to share their stories, particularly from these slightly lesser known destinations, I think it's fair to say, when we're looking at the climate debate map. And I think just if I could finish on Nepal, where they were saying here, these demonstrations, speaking to the organisers of the event in Nepal, they were saying while their demonstration was small, they were hoping to send a message that this issue reaches people across the globe. And it is not just those in perhaps slightly more affluent Western nations who are making a stand and demanding action. Those are the voices we've been getting here in theCUBE. Well, let's cross over to Slovenia now, where we have the look at the protests that have been taking place there. Speaking to Simon Moe of Youth for Climate. Thank you very much for joining us here on Euronews tonight. What is motivating the people there in Slovenia to go out on the streets and take part in this global strike?
Well, in Slovenia, we're definitely motivated by the same things as everyone else, everywhere else in the world today striking. We fight for climate justice, for limiting the global temperature rise to 1.5 Celsius by 2030. And we are fighting for the implementation of good climate policy in our country.
Now, we've been looking there at, from Tuvalu, a tiny island, to Tokyo, the Japanese capital. I mean, these marches have truly gone global. But looking particularly at Slovenia, how many people joined you there today? And would you say this issue has now gone mainstream in Slovenia?
There was nearly no talk about climate change in Slovenia before we started this movement. During our first strike on the 15th of March, we reached 12,000 people, which was one of the biggest protests ever. Today we only had a leading up action to the Climate Action Week, which is a range of events during the whole week. So we only were a couple of hundred. We did an action with a body sign on our main square. And we're expecting around 15,000 people to the main strike, which we're holding on the 27th of September.
Well, Simon, one thing that was really interesting, seeing the reception Greta Thunberg got when she was speaking to US politicians, some of them saying, it's not our issue to be dealing with, other countries are dumping more in the ocean. So she then replied, well, I'm from a small country, we've all got to take an issue. What is the mood in Slovenia? Do people there feel that it is upon them to make a decision, or do they look at bigger countries and want them to take action first?
The opinion of the public and the government is definitely different. When we first met with our prime minister after the first strike, he said that it's not our problem that bigger countries should be doing more. But then at the same time, everyone is telling us that it's up to our personal decisions to change the world, that we can save the environment by not using straws. So if that's true, why can't any country do climate action to prevent a global catastrophe?
And just finally, Simon, then, what hope do you have that your actions today, the actions of young people and indeed many people across the generations around the world will have? What action do you want to see taken?
Well, since the start of this movement, we've already seen so much done. Climate change has become the main issue in media, also in politics. Change is slowly starting to get somewhere. We're definitely expecting action after the climate summit in New York. In Slovenia, we're expecting a good climate action plan from our government, which will be implemented, and further cooperation with young people who are those who will suffer from the climate crisis the most.
Simon Moe joining me there from Slovenia. A message we're hearing from so many we speak to from around the world demanding action on climate change.